So we're going to use letters to represent genes, right? That's going to give us a genotype, let's say, for instance. So let's say there's a hypothetical gene. On these chromosomes, there can be over 1,000 genes, right? But let's look at one. Now let's say it's purple. You have purple hair. If you have that gene, right? We're going to use it in chapter 14. It's going to talk about the color of flowers. So it's a little different, but in plants. And if your parents gave you these genes, then during meiosis, right, 50% of your eggs or genes are going to contain dad's or mom's chromosome. Right? You're not going to get both of these chromosomes into the gametes. And half of them are going to get dad's. Okay? So, what we're going to do in chapter 14 is do crosses. Okay? So in order to do a cross, which is basically we're going to mate, say, one plant with another plant, then we're going to have to make gametes in the process. And we're going to keep it simple, and we'll always say 50% give you one, 50% give you the other. One comes from mom, one comes from dad. Okay? So mom and dad, their purple is the phenotype, the color that's produced, or the outward expression. And then the genotype in this case would be big P, big P. Right? This individual gene type is big P, big P. Its phenotype is the purple color. Okay. Now if we cross this, say, with another individual, and say these are the same chromosomes, I just made it a little smaller. Now we have little p, little p. Okay, and then their phenotype, instead of purple, let's say now they have white hair instead of purple hair. So when this guy makes gametes, 50% of the gametes are going to have this one, and 50%, so let's say this is from mom, this comes from dad, and 50% of the gametes, sperm or egg, have the little p, but it came from dad. These 50% have the little p, they came from mom. It doesn't matter that they're different chromosomes, or the same chromosome, but they have the same, at this allele, they have both the little p genes. This guy has the big P genes. So this allele is for hair color. Right? You can have purple hair or white hair. The genetic information is the hair color, which has two alternate forms, purple hair or white hair. You guys following me? So if we do this cross, right, this guy has sex with this guy, what happens? So we do what's called a Punnett square. And what we do is we put, say, this guy on this side of the Punnett square, and this guy goes on that side. So what goes there? They're gametes, right? Big P, big P. Right? 50% have the big P from mom, 50% have the big P from dad. They both happen to be the same, so it's really redundant to put two, but just to keep this consistent, I am. Then we're going to cross them, right? We're going to use the little p, we're crossing, so the gametes this guy makes is the little p and the little p. So when these sperm and these eggs unite, we're going to put all the possible outcomes of the genes, right? Big P with the little p, big P with the little p. Right, same. They all end up being big P, little p for the genotype. Right? 100% of them, they're called monohybrid, have the big P, little p, they're heterozygous now. These two are homozygous for big P. This guy is homozygous for little p. We'll talk about those terms and we'll use them a lot. So when we cross this guy, or this guy has sex with this guy, that's what a cross is. Then these are the gametes this guy makes. You put the gametes that this guy makes up here. And then you say when this sperm unites with this egg, then you get that genotype. Okay, when this sperm unites with this egg, the offspring have that genotype. So the whole purpose of this is to produce offspring. Any questions? Now, let's say these guys have sex. So their genotype, big P, little p, then 50% of the gametes have the big P, and 50% of these gametes have the little p, right? So when this organism goes through meiosis and goes from this is actually the 2N state. You have a mom and a dad. You go to a 1N state in the gametes. Half of this sperm or egg are going to be big P, half of their sperm and egg are going to be little p. I'm going to cross it with the same. So the same scenario here, right? This guy has half big P of the gametes, half little p of the gametes. Right? So now we're saying when these guys have sex, they both have the same genotype. They both have purple hair. White hair is actually, the reason we use a little p is because it's recessive, means it's dominant over purple hair. Okay. So we do this cross, then we generate this Punnett square. Right? We have this guy, 50% will be big P, 50% will be little p. This guy's the same thing, right? Big P, little p. So we're doing the same thing we did here. Now we're going, this organism or this person or plant or person and this person's having sex. They both get 50% of the gametes have the big P, 50% of their gametes have the little p. Then when we do the hybrid or the Punnett square, this guy generates 50% of these, 50% of these gametes. This guy is the same thing. So let's say these are the sperm, this is the egg. So when this sperm, if that unites with this egg, then the offspring will have the big P genotype. If this one and this one unite during sex, then you get that genotype, right? If this little p and that big P unite, you get the same result as that one. If the little p and the little p sperm and egg get together, then the offspring have that genotype. Okay, so why do we do Punnett squares? We do crosses. We refer to this cross as the parental or P generation, when we talk about what Menville does, then he calls this the F1 generation. And then when the F1 generation have offspring, you generate the F2 generation. So these are the babies of the F2. These are the babies of the F1. Right, these are gonna, this is at conception, the offspring have these genotypes. That's what the Punnett square is, right? It's you're mating two different flowers or two different organisms. We're going to talk about fruit flies. I used the human beings here because, you know, I want you to understand, right? You have a chromosome from mom, chromosome from dad, two end state, two end state. When you make gametes, you're at the one end state, so you don't get both copies. You only get one copy in the gametes. You're either going to get mom's chromosome or you'll get dad's chromosome.